Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans. Thanks for joining us tonight. For those of you who may be new to me and Spirit Switchboard, I am a psychic medium out of Ontario, Canada. I'm from Northern Ontario originally, living in Southern Ontario now. And there's a few things I'd like to share with you that are coming up that are pretty exciting. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for being here. Lake Superior Paracon is happening. So it's the first big Paracon that's happening in Thunder Bay, Ontario. I'll be participating there along with fellow UPRN host, Laura Lee Potvin. She does the Angel Rock on Mondays and the Thing at the Foot of the Bed with medium David Hansel on Thursdays. Shane Pittman of Holzer Files and 28 Days Haunted. He will be there as well too. Jeff Belanger, Haunted New England. He is researcher for Ghost Adventures right from the very beginning. So Jeff Belanger is going to be there as well too. Michael, John, and Dale Quigley from the Paranormal Voice out of Windsor, Ontario. It's so stacked. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a meet and greet on the Friday night, different vendors and workshops during the day on Saturday. Investigation Saturday night. And if you get your all-day pass ticket and you want to do an add-on, I'm doing a Spirits and Sweets event on the Sunday, a 2-hour gallery on the Sunday. So I'm super excited about that as well too. I also have an event coming up also in October in St. Thomas, Ontario, Love Life Afterlife event at the Princess Ave Playhouse. It's an old church that's been renovated into a theater. And I love working out of this theater. It's the third event that I've done there. Definitely has their in-house spirits that like to interact during the event. So that's coming up October 19th. If you go to my website, which is just carrieLynnShellhorn.com, you can get tickets from there. Hi, everyone. Hi, Contessa, Tanya, Sherry, and Julie. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Very excited to have a chat with the guest that I have on today. So let me get his bio up for you guys. Shaun Michael Crusha, psychic medium, oracle card reader. Shaun has been conducting readings and paranormal investigations worldwide for several years, featured on the Travel Channel, Haunted Case Files, and Portals to Hell. He loves connecting with people and helping them on their journey. He is an empath and uses a combination of intuitive guidance and mediumship to receive messages. He focuses on helping clients see a future from a healing and positive perspective in order to achieve greater peace and understanding, asking angels and spirit guides to open a path of vision and clarity to those who are seeking peace of mind and hope in a time of need. Please welcome to the show, Shaun Michael Crusha.
Hi there. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you bringing me on. I really do appreciate the invite. This is fantastic.
I enjoy people's stories. I enjoy learning about people's stories, and I find your background really fascinating. I love. So I'm just interested in talking about your journey a little bit more and sharing you with my listeners.
Oh yeah, of course. I can kind of start kind of early, or I can kind of go the fact that this didn't fit initially into my wheelhouse of thinking because I was in the military for 26 years.
Exactly.
But it
wasn't strange to you though, because you grew up around it.
I did. That's what I was going to get back to, is the fact that, even though you're kind of a little bit tuned out, whatnot, when it comes to military, like structure and all of that. I was in combat in convoys a few times, and I was in the Air Force, but I was in convoys in support of things. So it really heightens your intuition when you're constantly looking at protection measures and safety of your team. So it was really, really neat to kind of open my guess even wider at that point. But
and would you have used a different term though? Like, would you have called it like a gut feeling and not necessarily intuitive feelings? Like, would you have different vocabulary at that point?
Well, unfortunately, my mother passed before I went on the 2 sets of different convoys. So I just asked her to watch over me at that point, and I believe it was her additional guidance that kind of helped me to like see what's flowing and what's going on. There were several large events that I don't really need to talk about that we avoided, and so I'm very, very grateful that I was guided and watched over during that time frame. My parents actually ran psychic development groups when I was a kid, so this is a long time before all of this came around. I can remember incense and all sorts of things flowing through the house constantly as a kid. So this was not just a flash in the pan. They ran psychic development classes out of the house ever since I was little, and I participated. I got very lucky because I have 2 sisters, and out of the 3 of us, I asked if I could kind of join in, and they were very welcoming to allow me in this group with all these adults, and yet me, as a youth, kind of tuning in as well. And it really helped me to kind of not be afraid to share, like things, because if my family's open to this, it doesn't make me fearful of of sharing things that I'm experiencing and so forth.
I love that. I heard you on an interview sharing that part of your story before, and that's what really, like, both aspects, because I have military brat children.
Okay.
And I have been this way my whole life. And when I call it coming out of that witchy root closet, like I did something totally else. And then I was a mom, and focused on them before I started doing this full time. And when I did, it was for supporting kids that were intuitive. So it was so normal in our house. And I think that's the part that I was really drawn to you about, was having all these different facets of who you are that make up that whole, and how it can be normal. Like it's doesn't have to be this weird outside of the box thing, because we're just regular people.
Yeah, most definitely. And we're just, the other thing is I keep, because I teach psychic development class here in the Springs, and I always talk about, gifts versus, abilities. Everybody's got their own perspective on it. I believe it's a gift, and I believe that we're very, very gifted and lucky. And I sit in a place of gratitude every single day of anything that comes through, every message, anything that comes through for somebody that is struggling to keep them flowing and going. It's a true blessing every single time.
And it's being of service, and knowing that we're being of service for something so much greater than us. And that's such a humbling aspect to it.
Most definitely. But you also got to remember that I think I went through the service aspect of things to kind of give me the strength to not be fearful. And I've run into several situations where others might be a little bit fearful, and I just kind of sat there and go, I can't walk away from this. This is something that's not that spooky. They're just trying to move us away from a situation. Mm-hmm. And I believe the combination of that being put in my path, which was the military aspect of it, and then the gifts, starting very early, kind of give me the strength to kind of go through and help people with things that are in their minds a little bit spookier,
Well, do you think social media plays a factor in creating that fear, or media in general, like depending on?
Well, yeah, obviously it depends on the avenue of the media, because a lot of things like this kind of help people to kind of clarify it. And this is a form of media. So, but, this helps people to kind of not be fearful. And I always say, don't be afraid. Don't use fear in your mind, because literally spirit can interact with us and hear us. So it's the main thing is don't be fearful. There's no reason to be fearful. If there's any reason that they're a little bit cantankerous or whatever, more than likely they're just the ones trying to push it out of the location. So it's not really that fearful. I've run into quite a few things that you have to walk out of, and you're going, oof, that was a little bit weird. Like the energy of the spirit was quite interesting. I always say the term interesting, because when it's not necessarily entirely positive, it's definitely interesting. I've continued to come out of the military in 2012. Went from that piece of things to right into paranormal investigations, because I, at that point, wanted to kind of jump to see where I'm going with this, because I always wanted to help people in one way or the other. And I thought maybe it was the paranormal aspect in this, like the gift portion of that. And I was also experiencing a lot of things that other people couldn't necessarily pinpoint. And I used, let's just say I purchased about $15,000 worth of paranormal equipment to.
Okay, I'm going to let you finish. Sorry, and I'll ask my question when you're done.
In order for me to kind of try to validate that this stuff was actually factual, and these people around me just weren't able to pick up on it.
Like a dog whistle. There's just a vibration that we seem to hit, right?
Yeah, it's all sorts of things. It's the voices that come across every once in a while when I'm in a haunted location out loud, and I hear the disembodied voices, and they're like, I'm like, did you hear that? They're like, no, not at all. Mm-hmm. And then I go back and record, to my recordings and go, yeah, it's right there. Do you not hear it? It's one of those things where you're going, we're able to hear and tune into things that other people necessarily aren't tuned into. Yeah. I felt, for some folks that their gifts are growing, this can be challenging, because, they don't know how to deal with this. The main thing is, find a safe space and find a community within your own location, and kind of find those people that are part of your tribe to kind of help you not be fearful and potentially expand your gifts, as I would put it. I generally teach through intuitive energy. So I use tools where people touch papers that other people have been, it's kind of like psychometry, but it's energy of a paper that somebody's been holding onto for 5-10 minutes. And then they read, not knowing which person they have. They just read from the energy, and it's so incredible how people go, wow, I didn't know that was even possible, and it kind of opens up people's eyes, even some of the folks that are just along with the ride with their spouse or whatever, like
sometimes they're voluntold.
Yeah, it happens. Hey, this is what we're going to do today, so yeah.
I have this exercise that I do. Can I share an exercise that I do with people?
Yeah. Why not?
Get them to take little oranges, like little clementines or mandarins, with a piece of masking tape, and write their name on it. So everybody in the group, and so everybody holds it for like a 5-minute meditation. Then we put all the oranges back into the bag. And then I go around in front of each person and ask them to put, sometimes it helps push them too, hand over heart, eyes open, eyes closed, inside ear, outside ear, all of those ways, but to put their hand in the bag and to find their orange and pull it out without looking, just feel it, and having to discern, right? Because you have to push other people's energy out of the way.
I always say we're disclaimer.
It is so fun, Shaun. Like people put in there, like, I can't do this. And I'm like, we're all just going to send you some good vibes and stop. So just take a deep breath. And it's first instinct, right? It's always those first 3 seconds. Boom, and they got it. It's exciting. It's exciting watching people have the aha moments.
Wow,
There's a
that's
few people
incredible.
in the chat that have done this with me.
Oh, wow.
But
I
it's
bet
fun,
you
that
that's
play, right?
a lot of
Because
fun.
I think a lot of it's it's relaxing and surrendering with your imagination and into what's in the space. And I think if we trust, like if we remember that light came first,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we don't
Yeah.
have to be so scared
Yeah.
of the dark. We just pull in that light and
Not,
away
not,
we
not
go.
at all. Not at all. Yeah, just
Yeah.
we brighten up the space no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
With exercises, it's always so fun. But I always tell people that when you're reading energy, often when we're in a safe space and in a really clear, free environment to open, we begin to open ourselves up to the entire space.
Yeah.
And if we read, then all of a sudden, now we're reading everybody in the room instead of just focusing on. So this not only allows you to kind of focus your energy, because the thing that somebody writes their name on is a sticky note. They write their first name and they fold it identical, the whole, and then they hold it.
Love it.
And we do introductions. Why are you here tonight? Sort of thing. And then I collect them, and then we go back around. And then if they're doing it properly, they're tuning in their energy in to just the paper. So it's not only is it it's like, don't open your aura, don't open yourself up to reading the entire room. Now
Yeah.
it allows you to bring it in and bring it closer to focus your energy so that you're only tuning into what you're holding on to and not actually everybody in the room, which could, normally I maximize it to 12 people, because that's quite a bit for practice in a space,
And it's
so
and some people, because I know that people say that to me too, like you don't mean to, or you don't realize sometimes that you've got your energy filling up the space and how to pull
yeah.
it back in, right? So 12
Yeah,
people
you have to
is a
draw. You
lot.
have to draw it in. You definitely have to draw it in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those aura reader machines
Yeah.
will show you how open you are and how
Dowsing rods too.
wide your energy is. Because some people just don't know. They can't necessarily believe it, and they're more of a they have to see it to believe it sort of thing. But a lot of those will show. Like I did that before reading at one of the fairs, and then we did it at the very end of it. And like you could see the difference of me being so open to and welcoming to everybody, to shrinking my aura at the end, where I was just tuning in directly to people one on one.
Right.
I think
And
that's
some people do need the visual.
they do. Everybody learns differently. It's not nothing on them. It's just everybody learns differently.
I find the comparison is a really big hurdle for people too when they're opening up to their abilities and stretching those muscles, like not comparing themselves to somebody else or needing it to be the same way that somebody else works. Everybody's going to have a unique way of working.
Yeah, but the main thing, or the main focus with that is we all have different life experiences. And we all read from those different life experiences. So we build potentially different signs and symbols. So there is no two readers that are identical. So the main thing is they can't beat themselves up over something that is based on how they're connected to spirit. Like I always give the example of, okay, what's the color red mean? What does the stop sign mean? And what does the stoplight mean? If you ask 7 people, you might get different answers. So you have to kind of build those signs and symbols to help, but at the same time, it is based on what they've gone through. If somebody had an accident at a stoplight, that's going to be different for them. So you have to understand that everybody's going to be different. They're all going to read differently, and you can't judge yourself or anybody else by how you receive.
And it's a
That's the main
journey.
thing.
It's an
Also,
everyday journey. It doesn't end.
Well, it's never ending. That's exactly what I was about to say. You're right on point with that one, because I'm telling you, it's never ending. There's no, there's nothing that you can't keep growing from. The main thing what I tell people when I'm teaching is, the moment you start thinking, you're interpreting and you're using the wrong side of just listen and write down what comes through. Don't try to interpret it. Don't try to think it through. Just listen and write down what's there. That way you're not in your thinking brain, and you're not, like second guessing, and rather not, oh, I only have 2 items on a piece of paper and somebody else has a full page of paper. Like, don't beat yourself up, because you know what? This is a free space that allows you to kind of open up and be expansive, and kind of, this is your tribe that you're coming into. So it's a safe space, but you can't be in the thinking brain while you're trying to listen, so just tune in and listen, and keep it flowing and keep it going.
Yeah. The Chihuahua brain can get loud.
Most definitely. If you start, the fear can creep in that regard too, because you're going, okay, I can't get anything. No, it has nothing to do with that. Just stay grounded and stay loving and stay, things that are in somebody's highest good. What does somebody really need to know? Yeah. It's a beautiful space. Yeah.
I feel too, a large part in gaining that clarity and confidence is personal accountability with your own healing, right? Like taking accountability with your stuff.
Yeah, we are constantly realizing that you have to kind of not take things on as somebody else goes through it, because there are things that you're like, ooh, I went through that exact same thing. Ooh, I went through that exact same thing. Ooh, and you're like, okay, should I share this or not?
Yeah. Especially at the beginning, I found so I've been doing this full time now for 17 and a half years, almost 18 years.
Oh,
so
nice.
Especially at the beginning, I found there was a lot of people coming that had a similar story where there was healing needing to take place, right? So I was very cognizant of that fact of where that needed to take place. And then you could see it shift and evolve. And I had read it. It came up in a session once too. As long as you're teaching from your scars and not your wounds, right?
Yeah.
Then you're sharing from a different space, and you're sharing from a place of wisdom.
You're definitely in a beautiful space, because it's a free zone, judgment free. It's just beautiful. Like with the example of the exercise we did. I ran it for about 5 years out of my house, and then COVID hit, and the month before COVID hit, we canceled it. And go figure, right?
Yeah.
And then we had a very, very gifted young lady that would come every week. She enjoyed it so tremendously, but she wasn't necessarily listening to her own guidance. And this room of 12 people, she received her paper, her sticky note, 5 weeks in a row, and read herself 5 weeks in a row. She's like,
yeah, and it's such a, sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow when Spirit's like a little kid, right? Hey, paid attention. How about now? You'll get right up in your space.
All right, with week 3, are you not catching on yet? No,
but it's good lessons, right? Like that.
Oh yeah. She's tremendous, and she's still a really tremendous gifted individual. She's just so dynamic, and she reads, like I said, everybody reads different. You said the same thing. Everybody reads differently. So, her style is totally different, but she's deep on a level of allowing people to kind of heal and targeting those areas that need to heal. So that's sometimes a little bit raw, because it's always a readiness factor of am I really ready to face the healing? Because sometimes it takes time. Some people that come to me, I'm like, ooh, I'll share what I can, but not necessarily everything, because sometimes people aren't ready to hear some of the factors or the facets of what's going through,
It's and that's where the discernment, right? In
exactly.
be able to understand and
that's a portion of it for sure.
Yeah.
Discernment is a lot of things, because as very, very, I'm very grateful for my empathic side. Does it hit me really hard? Yes, it does. But as a paranormal investigator, I can kind of walk around like a hound dog, basically. So I walk around room to room feeling energy, but then I have to discern, is this intelligent energy? Is this stuck energy? Is it my energy? What am I feeling? How many other people are in the room? And then the more people you bring to an investigation, the more likely you're going to bring some of their loved ones along with to potentially watch over them and protect them. So you're like, okay, I'm a discernment tool, but at the same time, I need space so that I can kind of identify what's truly in the location versus what's the people that are coming through.
I think how you work was really showcased when you did that segment at the McCormick farm on Portals to Hell. It really showcased, because that segment, if anybody hasn't seen it, you can find it online. It's the Portals to Hell McCormick farm, correct? It's the McCormick farm.
Yes,
and
it's the McCormick farm.
Not that I enjoyed watching you have to feel all of that stuff, but when we do work that deeply and we see someone else work the same, it's comforting in a way, and validating. Validating. And that was something I wanted to talk about, the recover time after that, because like you really felt it right in your gut. And I was like, I know that sounds awful, but I was right on the edge of my seat going, yes, yes, yes. That's exactly, I know that feeling. I know exactly. Or it hits you in your bowels or your chest, your head trauma stuff really throws me for a loop too. But it's the recoup time, I guess, is what I wanted to ask you about after. I guess if you don't mind, let's start from before you go to a place and you're asked, how does the whole process work for you?
It all depends on the location, because if I'm going to a location, it depends on how much time or how much notice I've been given.
Yeah. Phil is asking, as a sensitive person, how do you protect yourself prior to going into spaces?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just trust, and I completely trust that they're with me and guiding me and protecting me. And if I feel anything that's bothering me, I just immediately just wipe it away and don't allow it in my energy.
Me too.
It's
I don't feed it.
When I first started doing this, I would envision white light coming out of the clouds, like something from a different dimension, and then coming down to my body, and envisioning, it would clear my body with this white light, and it would go from head to toe and completely cleanse my body, and then it would encircle me. I was really protected. But what I found is that in that space, I don't want to be overly protected, because I want to be able to feel what's truly there. I don't want to push away darkness if I need to identify there is something darker there.
Yeah, and what the darkness is, because the darkness also depends on our personal journey as well too, and what we define and discern as dark. So everyone's got a different.
The thing is, a lot of times, those that have crossed over that aren't exactly or weren't exactly healthy at the time, they were doing bad things, not necessarily positive things. They can come across as a negative energy, but very rarely I've run into something that I would consider extremely dark.
I agree. Me too. Me too. And sometimes it's spirits that are just frustrated that they've not been paid attention to that feel intense, right? Like that intense
Very
energy.
strong.
They're just
Yeah.
wanting support to move on, or therapy, like spirit therapy.
Well, some of them just don't. They just want to be left alone. It's like, get out of my space. It
Yeah.
all depends, but it all can come across as an energy that's not welcoming and not very kind. You can run into a grandmother or a grandfather that's like, cantankerous and get out of my space. In life. So why wouldn't you potentially run into that in spirit form? So it all depends. But remember that I'm talking of a combination of things, because prior to the McCormick farm, I had several visits because I had about a 2-week notice on that particular case.
Okay.
And I had them come to me 3 nights in a row. And, there's a lot of conjecture about, what time, there's that the witching hour, etc. But in this situation, they came to me between 11:40 or so to little maybe 12:30, and the case was also in Colorado, and I live in Colorado. So, but I had different visits from different spirit that were related to the case several nights in a row, and I felt the pains associated with them. I felt, how they died and stuff, and I wrote it down, and I told the producer what I was receiving, and I didn't share it with anybody else because that was only for the case. And then I had, on the very last day, I had something come to me that wasn't entirely positive, because very last day before I went over to the hotel room that I was going to be staying in, something came to my thoughts and said, call them, you can't do this. Call them, you can't do this. And I'm like, that's not my thoughts. What the moment I, like you said, we're discernment tools. We discern, what is this? Why am I, this is in my head. This is not healthy. This thing is actually reaching out to me early. This is not healthy. So the moment I realized it wasn't mine, I smelled sulfur and dust both. And I'm like, ooh, it was visiting me to get me not to come beforehand, and so, to some people that might be spooky. It didn't stop me from coming because I was coming anyway,
Yeah. I get like a dog with a bone. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start who, what, when, where, why, and how, and dig deep. Like,
yeah, yeah,
deep.
yeah. As that, I guess I'd call it a hound dog energy. I open my energy up, like I told you with the tools of the example of our class. We shrink our energy or we expand our energy, and as I walk into a space, I expand my energy to the space to feel it, to potentially interact with any energy that's in the space, so I know if I'm dealing with something intelligent or not. If I don't get interactions, I know it's just like a stuck energy. I work with people in houses too, so sometimes it's just a stuck energy that people that have been arguing, have left behind, so that's something that needs to be worked on, but it's not something that I have to interact with. So, like, it's this journey has been incredible, and every single day of it is expansive. You can't for a moment say that you know everything. There's nobody that knows everything, because this is ever growing, ever expanding, and people are always using different aspects of learning. Like in your case, you use the what you call them, tangerines or whatever. Yeah. So there are always different techniques to kind of allow you to trust in what's coming through, and that's the main factor with this, is just to trust, and then don't use fear, or don't be fearful of what you are interacting with. Yeah. I've been on several investigations, and I've been scratched 6 times. But you got to remember that anytime you're scratched, it's something that's fearful of you, not the other way around.
I
So,
know.
yeah,
It frustrates me, and I get more. I get more like that. I bite harder on that bone. Okay, let's go. Let's figure this out.
yeah,
When scratch, I'm just going to read this really quickly for you.
okay.
Grant
Yeah,
Evans is
you have some
just
questions?
sharing. Grant is part of the TOPS paranormal investigative team here in Ontario, and
Yeah,
he's been on the show a couple of times as well too. If anybody wants to go
okay.
back and watch those segments, Grant is very instrumental in teaching the public as well too about how to investigate and understanding the tools and protocols and those sorts of things too.
Sure.
He's just sharing there are quite a few investigators that claim energy visits them in their home or private space to try to deter them from their involvement in a case.
It does happen. Obviously, it doesn't happen to me very often because I'm fairly protected.
Yeah.
You know, I'm probably one of the things that I think darkest energy overall, just kind of wandering around I've ever felt was in Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, and one of the locations there that just was like I just couldn't stay in the room, and I couldn't even. It was so creepy that I'm like I had to step out of the room. The moment I stepped out of the room, I just shook it off. You know, like a dog that shakes off
Yeah.
the water. It was energy that I didn't want to receive and I didn't want to stay in. So that
Is that the I have never been. Is that the place that has the large shadow man photo, like that people have caught this large?
potentially, I
I know
in
of
that
it,
case,
but I've never been there.
I did that kind of solo with the guide that was helping me. Yeah, I did the whole thing solo. I don't really try to know what other people have picked up. I do get validated from what somebody will kind of tell me. Because,
Is
but
that important to you? Like
no, it's not important.
I like in the not knowing information ahead of time or not being
Well,
told too much.
I think it's preferred for me because you need to see me, in action and not necessarily because you need to trust in me to kind of, and then you're going to go, oh, he picks up on, oh, it's
Yeah.
really important because people have, like concerns that, there, unfortunately, there are people that aren't entirely truthful,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you got to remember that everybody's on a journey of their path. So some people are just on a beginner portion of their journey. So it might be that they're just still expanding their gifts and they don't really know how to interpret what's coming through. And then they share something, and you can't just you can't just say, okay, we're going to put this off to the side. What we do is we kind of acknowledge it at the same time, because everybody should be growing together.
I agree. I agree. I find
Do we have another comment there? Sorry.
yeah, it's Grant. He's just continuing in the conversation saying, I'd like to think that is when you are on the right path when something is trying to stop you.
Oh yeah, most
And
definitely.
I
Yeah.
don't, I think sometimes too, is it trying to stop you or is it just trying to intimidate to see how far they can push you and see what they're up against as well too, right?
Well, I mean that goes to them trying to get into your head about the fear thing.
Yeah.
Like can I make you fearful? Can I push you around? Can I potentially use you as some something to play with? There's a lot of factors depending on where you go that
Yeah.
this really could go that deep. Um, do you want to talk about spiritual attachments? Because that is an actual thing that
Yeah.
occurs. And people, you say, we know, and we're discerners, we can figure out if something's trying to affect our energy or stay with us, but not everybody can. And maybe that's why the other individual was asking, protection methods. For me,
Yeah. So Phil, I know that Phil, the person who had made this, I'll stick it up for us again. Phil Wilson, for a sensitive person, how do you protect yourself prior to going into spaces? Phil has a newly formed paranormal group outside of Kingston, Ontario. So, yeah, so let's talk about attachments.
Okay. Well, as a group, I would say, get everybody on the same page so that people aren't fearful. And if we do have somebody that's a little more fearful on your team, team them with somebody that's really strong, that, not that they're, completely scientific, but at least that they have the strength to not do anything to kind of run from the situation and stay in a positive direction. So I would say team whoever that is up if you feel like they're a little more fearful of this, because everybody on the team is still gaining understanding, and they're not, remember this, nobody knows everything. I don't care how long you've been doing this, nobody knows everything. So like, people can experience new things constantly.
Yeah. I don't feel that we're meant to know all the answers. I feel like there's parts that we're meant to know after we die.
Yes, exactly. I said eventually we will, and that's when we do pass away. Spiritual attachments happen a lot of times when they happen to like a particular investigator. They like a person that's with the group. I happened to, when I first started doing this, I had one that came in. It was a female, and she basically claimed me. She liked me, and I went to a women's prison in Colorado here. It's a museum, and she tried to attach to me. And I believe it's really interesting how they actually try to attach. I'll tell you my methods are where I believe they attach the most. But do you have any experience with your side of things on where somebody would attach potentially?
As to why a spirit would attach to a person, my thoughts on that, or me, have I had that experience?
No, like where on a person's body would they potentially? I attack certain directions or certain areas more so than anything, because I found it very repetitive that spirit generally will attach in certain locations on a body, on a living person's body. So since you haven't really kind of seen or felt that.
No, the only time was at the back of the neck, like just right in here.
That's exactly my first one.
Yeah.
Okay, so the back of the neck, a lot of times for those that are in tune, that are psychically in tune, they'll get that. The second place is the shoulder blades. So watch for anything connected to pains with the shoulder blades, because it literally will feel kind of like hooks or talons hooking into the shoulder blades, because they don't want to detach from whoever they're connecting to. And then after this, I'll kind of tell you how to kind of do a quick removal. Okay, the fastest way to kind of remove these things. Because as an investigator, you got to be safe, and you got to know how to kind of get out of that situation. So generally, the back of the knees is the third spot. So you got the back.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so it's the back of the neck, the shoulder blades, and the back of the knees. And I always believe it's based on where this entity is height-wise. If it's, I've seen things that are crawling that are very dark.
Oh, yes.
And so it will try to hit you wherever it can get you. And it can actually feel really weird on the back of your knees. Okay, so it's I think the worst out of the three is the talons on the shoulder blades. It literally hurts when you remove them from that situation. So when I removed the female from my shoulder blades, which she was attached to, I believe if I were recording at the time, you would heard a scream. she screamed very, very loud because she didn't want to release me. And so the methods for me, the quickest methods to remove anything that, remember that this is very quick. So something that you're in a team, you're doing something, all of a sudden somebody feels creeped out, they're freaking out. Just do this really quickly. There's a stone called selenite, Selenite, selenite. That's extremely powerful to remove the energy connection. So what you do is you wipe it over the location that this thing is trying to connect to. So it kind of removes energetically that connection to it. Believe it or not, it works very, very, that's the quickest way to do it. Now, if that doesn't solidify the disconnect from this, I believe the vibrational bowls is the next method. Because what
I
you
always
want to
bring my
do,
tuning forks with me.
yeah, something vibrational. I use a 5-inch Tibetan singing bowl that's handcrafted, that's really thick. And I break up the vibration. You don't circle the vibration. You want to break up the connection to whatever this thing is that's connecting, how it's connecting to somebody. So you want to hit it so you break up the vibration and the connection and disconnect this from whoever's being affected. And remember, it could drop off and connect to somewhere else on that person's body. So I generally hit all 3 of those spots completely. So I'll run it over the neck, the shoulder blades, and the back of the knees especially. And then, a lot of times the feet, just to make sure, because, we connect to things through our feet, through our hands, through our feet, so I work with people clearing and helping them constantly with energy. A lot of times people take on a muck of energy from the work that they do on a daily basis, and the energy of connecting to the people that they work with. And they have this residual muck with them that doesn't feel necessarily entirely healthy. And so, this can work for them as well. So it's not just one piece or one facet of it, but to disconnect this from something that's affecting them quickly, I believe selenite and the Tibetan singing bowl are really nice tools to bring along. You can do the combination of this. When I do burn things, I generally hit cedar, Palo Santo, and white sage all at one. I break them all into, I have dust in Palo Santo. I use sage broken down, and I have cedar that's broken down. And so I burn all 3 of those simultaneous.
My friend Tanya is just sharing, I think I need a selenite t-shirt for work.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's always good to have that. Sometimes if you can buy bracelets that are selenite with a combination of hematite, because hematite deflects negative energy and selenite is constantly clearing things. The main thing you can't do with selenite is get it wet. So you got to understand that if you are going to use this as a bracelet, you're likely to shatter this at some point. But buy more than one, and whatever you receive with left or right wrist, wear it on that one.
Yeah, she's just saying good tips. Thank you.
Oh, of course. And, obviously that's part of the reason I've been asked to come here is to help. And that's my journey, is to continually help people, but at the same time learn while I'm at it, learn as well.
Right. And then it's teaching them so how they can maintain it, not just be a constant fixer for people too.
Right, exactly. Well, but at the same time, like when I go into a house, I show people what to do. I don't do it just to do it for them. I don't want a repeat client. I want them the knowledge to, I say, okay, this is what this, and this, and that's what we're going to do here. This is why I'm doing this. And then we move forward from that. And that's why it's being done that way. Now, what I want you to do, instead of like paying me to come back, I want you to go buy these things so that you have the tools in your arsenal, so that you have, do I get people going, no, I trust in you, I want you to do it. I'm like, well, but I prefer you to learn, and I prefer you to do it, be able to do it for yourself.
I even in sessions sometimes too, I've run into where you know that you have to start teaching them. There's so much that you're trying to teach them. So we've done what we need to do as far as message and sharing, and then we've got to teach them that aspect. So I put together this thing called like a healing tools package. So my assistant knows when I'm doing large events or public events, I'll say, I need you to email my assistant and tell her you need the stuff. Just write the stuff in the subject line, and she knows what to send you. And it's like that teaching tools package. And if you need a hand, let us know, sort of thing. And I, the more we can teach and educate people, and be a support system and have that space, community space for them, the better. Denise is just sharing, she throws salt. I used to throw salt at work, and Contessa is just sharing that she just received her selenite today.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I have a lot of selenite all over the house, and I buy them constantly. This is in my windowsill.
Oh, mine's about half that size.
Yeah.
And how much do you feel intention matters?
Well, sorry. This is just a small sampling of what I have.
Oh, wow.
That's just in one window.
Wow.
I have a lot of it. Okay. Intention is well, the thing is, remember, that goes back to the other facets of what we do. It's about fear. I'm sorry, I'm kind of selling it back.
That's okay. That's okay. We have lots of time. Tansy's just sharing that they're beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Oh yeah, of course. I've got that in most of my windowsills. The main thing is, this works. It's not about intention. It just works on its own. I like things that it just works. Don't be fearful, because I would say, like, if you're tuning in and you're gifted, imagine, and you're watching my Portals to Hell episode of the McCormick Farm, and you are truly tuning into what I'm feeling, you can actually tune into what's there. Yes,
you can. And that's why I was on the edge of my seat going, yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes.
But at the same time, when that happens, you have to understand that not only that, but you can actually draw in what we're connecting to.
Wow.
Because you're connecting to what I
don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to understand that I can actually tune into a space by walking me around, right? So you're in a totally different location, and you can turn your video around and walk me location, and I can feel things, right? So that's an energy. That's something that I can feel. So if I can do that, I can also potentially tune into a TV show where I'm tuning in completely to it. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm in this space. This is probably not a good thing to be in that space. And I will sometimes say, oh, I think I should turn this one off, because I'm not involved in the case. I can't do anything about it. And it was interesting to watch for a moment, but it wasn't for me. So I'm going to turn off the TV because I don't want to tune into that.
Yeah. Oh no, I wanted to turn into that one. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And well, I think sometimes I don't know. I think I was very pulled to you and how you were working is what it was, because I missed part of I missed the beginning aspects of it. And then because you come right in near the end of that segment, like, or 3/4 of the way through, it's quite near the end. So I was doing other things, and then I heard your voice, and then that's what tapped me in to pay attention.
So are you working a lot with the healing modalities too? I can feel the energy off your hands as you waved it back and forth. No, it's okay. I just was wondering if you're working with your healing modalities as well.
Yeah.
Because we're tuning in. So I just know that facet is also something that you can do if you want. If you haven't already kind of expanded your healing aspect of whatever you want to do with the healing. I don't say you have to do a certain modality within your healing aspect, but I definitely felt it when you ran your hands. We got questions here?
Yeah, Jackie is just asking why you put the pieces on the windowsill.
I read usually in this space, and so I like to have free space behind me, so nothing just willy-nilly enters behind me, and so it helps me to clear the space behind me. And I trust 100% in selenite. I've removed many things from people, energy-wise. So if I trust it, I use it for myself too. So I put it in each. There's 3 actual windows here, and I have it in each one of them behind me. So it's very important.
Too that face out.
Yeah, I do believe that most every home or business is going to have a location where spirit can visit. You know, we can call it a portal, a vortex, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Most places, if you tune in long enough, you're going to be able to find. Do I have a place? I'll be honest.
Asking if you like a place you recommend to purchase selenite, okay, or how somebody can choose the right selenite piece for them, or can they go wrong in their choice?
No, I don't think you can go wrong with your choice, but I'll show you a difference. If you are holding on to a lot of just energy within your hands, I believe 100% that something smooth. Most selenite is very rough. It is very, very brittle and rough. And that's the ones I use for actually clearing people's energy. But if I'm going to like use something from my hands or with me connecting to something, you want to use something smooth. This one, you know, happens to be shaped in a heart. That's all fine and dandy. But the main thing is that it's selenite, and you're constantly clearing your own energy with it. If you're connecting to something, like somebody was saying that work, you're connecting to something, you know, just clear yourself, clear your energy. It's okay. Normally for me, it's just wiping away whatever or wherever I connected, you know, to, if I connected to something negative. But for somebody that's kind of still growing and expanding, this is a very useful tool. But the thing is, I believe the bigger the better. So, because if I'm going to use it over your energy, your back, your shoulders, your neck, the back of your knees, I wouldn't mind just hitting it really in one big swipe, so that I continually, you know. So I have you know, 18, 22-inch pieces of selenite, and I believe that those are the best. People use the little tower things, and that's fine and dandy if you're going to put it next to your nightstand while you're sleeping, that kind of thing. I like that. But when I'm using it, I want something longer that I can run over somebody's energy a little bit longer and quicker, just a quicker thing to kind of do. It's very, very useful either way. So if you're going to use it in this form, or you're going to use it in one of the longer forms, this is one of the many pieces I have. I have a slab that's bigger than a notebook. It's probably size of 2 notebooks. That's because I ran psychic development out of my class, and I had some miners. They mined different Amazonite here in Colorado,
right?
And they found it, and this selenite, and they gifted it to me as a way of paying me back.
Oh, wow.
Because I never charged for psychic development the entire time I led it, so they gifted it to me, and I thought that was very kind.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm doing an event out of town tomorrow, and I bought everyone little hearts. They don't know that yet, though.
They may know if they like this. They may know if they like this. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Contessa is just sharing. This is fascinating. One learns every day. That's the hope.
Well, we're continually learning, you know. And people ask me all the time, are you always open? You know, like, are you always in tune? Are you always picking up things? Are you always? And when I first started this, I was constantly having issues with being open, and kind of going, okay, this is a little bit overwhelming, because I was completely open. And over time, instead of being overwhelmed, I'm just super grounded. I believe grounding, centering and grounding is something that comes with time, because you just trust in it. Initially, it can be a little bit, like disheveling. It's, like a little bit off-putting. But eventually what you do is you realize that it's a gift, and you eventually don't tune into everything. You don't tune into everybody that you accidentally see, or, you run across. You just allow it to flow and keep moving on,
Yeah. Acknowledge it. And then
Well,
let it go.
you can acknowledge it if something comes to you. I'm not going to, hey,
No.
guess what? Guess what? Your grandma's here. No, that's not.
I'm at the hardware store to buy my bucket
Yeah.
only. I am not there to share messages.
Yeah. I'm definitely that masculine energy that says, I have a list and I'm checking it twice and I'm out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, me too. And before I even go in, I've parked my car and I go, thank you very much, Spirit, for letting everything I need be on hand quick so I can get in and out in less than 10 minutes. And thank you very much. I am not a big shopper. I want to go in and out and
Get it done.
Because that empathic side of us, people are drawn to us. They want to tell us their stories, and when you're standing in lines,
potentially heal. That's what they're looking for, is healing. And they share it. I always say that when I first started this work, I used more of my blue and green. So I was healing. I was healing from communication and so you got the blue for the communication, you got the green from the healing. And while I did my work, I healed people as I spoke. So I'm using the blue energy, and then I'm using the green to heal while I spoke to them. And as I've continually grown, the energy is different. It's more angelic. It's more a combination of white and purple. It's definitely a combination of those two things that comes through. When I do the aura photo that I used to do back in the day, which was solely, like my own journey of healing and through communication and everything that was going through in my life. And now I'm just in a healed space, or let's just say more healed space. Nobody's completely healed, and then it just comes from a different place.
Yeah. Contessa's asking, do you carry a piece of selenite on you when you are out and about?
Generally, I'll have one somewhere with me, but not necessarily in my pocket. I don't necessarily I don't do fear, and I don't necessarily think I'm going to have to tune in to something that's negative. If I don't know if you guys concur with this, but Wally World, which is not always necessarily entirely positive, I try to frequent other locations other than that one.
I used to tell people that the in-between space, in between the doors, where you get that blast of air when you have to go in. I don't go in like very frequently, very, very infrequently do I ever go in there. But between those two doors, that it was a government experiment and they were blowing stupid gas at people because everyone goes crazy. But then I realized that it does create fear. The way that they promotes and triggers all of the fear of lack, fear of not having enough. People get into that space if they're not aware. So that's why we feel that stuff when we go in there. For sure.
That's what I call it anyway.
Yeah. It's
definitely an adventure.
It is a lot. Okay, so I think that I don't know if we veered sideways, but I know that I can be a squirrel on Red Bull and go sideways rather quickly. When we were talking about doing those investigations and prep beforehand and what happens and then clearing, when it was intense, like when you're feeling that stuff, I know that you said you clear, but do you have a recoup time physically if you've been feeling stuff intensely physically. Like, I know that I keep coming back to McCormick Farm, but I don't know any of your history and what you've done. So those places where you're feeling it very intensely physically, what is that like for you?
It depends on the situation and the duration of how long I'm in the energy of the location.
Right.
In the McCormick Farm, it was an intense 4.5 hour walk around. So, that gave me afterwards, easily, 24 to 48 hours afterwards before they brought me back in to do the very last walk around.
Wow.
So it gave me time to recoup from it. But I've slept in Asylum 49 in Tule, as it's in Utah. Asylum 49 was a combination of retirement home / old folks home /
Oh, I think I know of that place.
Yeah, it was on Ghost Adventures. We went in there before Ghost Adventures did.
Right.
Me and Richard Estep and a few of us were in there.
Right.
I think you've seen him on about 12 or 15 shows. He was there with me. But we slept there, and you don't necessarily get time to get out of that energy. Even while you're sleeping there, you're sleeping in a haunted location. So it's a little murky with clearing and cleansing your own energy on a constant basis.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at one point I walked into one room that they didn't explain to me what it was, and I literally almost passed out because it was where they would operate on people in the location, in the room.
Oh.
And I walked right into that energy and just almost passed out because I did not know what I was encountering in that space,
Right. Yeah, I've not had. It's very interesting how people, maybe not where you are, but certainly where I'm at. There is that comparison that ends up happening in what is the only way. There seems to be a rigid thinking in how spirit should come through, needs to come through.
Well,
and
let's address.
We all are so different. So even the coming down part, right? Like,
well, that doesn't. Okay, I always tell people that doesn't make sense at all, because
I agree.
Everybody's in a different vibration. Okay, some people are like, they're nasty. They're a person from the gang. They're ready to fight at a moment's notice. They're in a low vibration. They're not necessarily in a very high vibration. They're ready to kind of take care of business. They're not necessarily lifted up. And everybody. So if we encounter a spirit that's at this vibration, and then we encounter one at this vibration, how do you expect them to interact with you at the same? Because they're at a different frequency, they're at a different vibration completely. So how does somebody scientifically try to identify the difference between those two? And if we're going to put this in a scientific perspective, how can we say that every ghost interacts with this particular frequency? They don't. It changes because they're all at different vibrations and different frequencies. So how can you have something that is not only is it not residual, it's intelligent? How is it going to repeat something? How is it going to go, okay, we're gonna show this 3 times in a row or 4 times in a row so that we can replicate this? We don't have a ghost that's sitting there, okay, I'm going to do whatever you say, I'm here for you. That's not
the entertainment monkey.
Yeah, it's not that's not what it is. We're interacting with them, and we're being graciously allowed to interact with them, and things are different. I've encountered warmth with some spirits. I've encountered cold spots with some spirits. I felt the chills with some. I felt like a little bit creepiness. It all depends. Every vibration is different. So it's hard to pinpoint that who's right and who's wrong, because they're different. It's you're going to have to go, okay, if I'm going to go to the same location 250 times and I'm only going to identify that location, what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify the spirits that are in those locations, and I'm going to identify what vibration they're at and what so that we know that. But that does not solidify things for the field, because what happens is you're identifying what's in the location, not necessarily with everything across the globe, because you don't know what you could potentially encounter in a different location, in a different spot. There's a place.
And the energy we bring to it affects it.
Oh, that too. Well, plus, the protection level, like I was telling you before. If you've got other loved ones or the guides, etc., with you, that's also going to be affected. I have people that say, hey, I had a loved one that was with me visiting, and I did an investigation. I felt them, and now I feel really creepy. I have a question for you. Do you believe that if you cleanse your location, it'll help what's helping you?
If we cleanse the location,
well, let's just say you're back at your house.
At my house?
Let's say you're back at your house, and now, you had a loved one that's crossed over that now is giving off a little bit creepier vibe than before. I believe 100%.
I've never had that happen.
I've had it happen because I've gone to some pretty dark locations. So I'm going, okay, if that's the case, it's because they were protecting me. They were encountering something, and now they have that creepy vibe with them because they help protect me against something. So what I do is I clear my space to clear them as well.
That makes sense to me, but I would never think that. I just don't get creeped out quickly. Like, I just don't go there. I just go, okay, it feels like something's needing to shift here, so we're just going to clear. And I don't.
You might want to go to Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, and that will shift. That will shift your energy of that particular aspect of it, because
not that I don't believe in it. I'm just saying I don't feed into it, and I don't go into that dark right away, because I certainly have been growled at, which is a memorable experience as well too.
Okay,
the first time you get growled at, and scratched as well too, and that's a whole other realm of things too.
But it doesn't have to be super dark.
And it was a very good learning curve for me when that happened. Like, I understood more, so I wasn't scared that it happened. It was more, okay, now I know that these are the things that I'm going to do when I'm addressing this.
Right. Well, every bit of it's learning, and that, like I said, no investigation is going to be like any other.
Yeah.
And when I went into that one hallway where I'm like, ooh, I can't even tune into this because it's so creepy. It's so next level. Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
So a friend of mine that's coming with me tomorrow, we do our own investigations, just the two of us. She's been there, and I wonder if it's the same hallway, because she talks about the hallway that she can't go down either. It's like a little stairwell / area where a news crew had actually set up, and I'm like, that was she was explaining that the news crew was in there, and I'm like, oh well. So I did not choose to stay in that little location. By the way, there's also another hallway that she might also have encountered, because I had my ankle grabbed 4 times in the hallway. Come to find out, somebody had actually been attacked, and it's a little gruesome. Yeah, I don't know if I want to describe it, but the individual was not was unalived.
Yeah, it crawled from that point forward because of what happened. And it was seeking my help while I was in the hallway. So, but we got to remember that could be extremely creepy. Something grabbing your ankle, that's just somebody seeking help. That's all it was.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I certainly get that where they'll hold my wrist or tap or pull my hair. I get those experiences that do happen.
I'm not sure I have the hair issues,
Do you know what? Animals creep me out more than people, which is horrible to say, because I forget about the animals that will come through. So then it feels like when you're standing in a lake and something touches you, you don't quite know what's touching you when you're in the lake and it touches you. So
that's
then
funny.
I hold my breath and go, then I have to relax and go, okay, so I got a horse or I got a dog now. We're moving into the animals. The animals actually make me hold my breath more than the people.
Well, I've been watching Shark Week over the last couple of days, so I'm like, that would be creepy.
I have to do our station ID really quickly. So
okay. All right.
If everyone, thank you so much. If you are just tuning in to us, you are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Carrie Lynn Schillhorn, and you are listening to us live on 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans, the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. My guest today is Shaun Michael Crusha, a psychic medium and paranormal investigator. Haunted Case Files, correct? And Portals to Hell. You've done all kinds of other things beyond that, but definitely how internationally how we have been introduced to you is
correct. Yes, shows. And you might have seen me in those things. Yes, for the longest time, I was helping a gentleman named Dennis Allen Batchelor at the Holy Cross Abbey here in Colorado. It's Canyon City, Colorado. So him and I would run a lot of the public investigations because a lot of people were trying to, learn as a team, do their team work, do their expensive work with anything of that nature. And for the longest time, I was helping that and kind of knew it was a safe space for them to kind of grow and kind of create things where they had the opportunity with 80,000 square foot location where they could use every piece of equipment they had in their arsenal to, try to identify or figure out what's going on. So, that was very, 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 very cool in that regard. I helped. He called me. He was the investigator and I was the psychic. So he called me a psychic sidekick. Yeah, but I did that.
Humor is really important.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, we used to feed off of Twitch. What's Up Gramps is his channel, but he would do this, and you could see our humor back and forth. Psychic sidekick came out of, I've been, like you said, on numerous radio shows, podcasts, and then the first one that you mentioned was. Richard Estep, the gentleman I was telling you about, he's a pure investigator. He's from
Colorado too, isn't he?
Yeah, he lives in Colorado as well, but he goes across the country constantly doing things. And so he came along on an investigation in Cripple Creek, Colorado, and we had a pretty tame night. It was a jail. It's an outlaw and lawman's jail museum in Cripple Creek. It's kind of clingy, a lot of noises, a lot of things that, you have to kind of just debunk completely. Right. And in the middle of the night, we had something that sounded like somebody being strangled down in the basement. And it just changed the energy. Everybody in the entire investigation, and that's the other thing is, we can get power or energy towards something as well by amping up our own energy. And it just kind of, all the investigators, just their energy just shot through the roof. And so I sat on the audio and located the anomaly, what it was going on. So I isolated and identified it because I was using a software to kind of locate it. And I played it back for the entire team. And then people went back and refocused, and that's part of the show. They allow you to listen to that as well as later in the investigation. we were kind of in a pause. So what do you do at a pause in investigation? You use the latrine, you go eat something, you do something of, that kind of,
coffee.
You might go outside and get some fresh air or whatever.
Yes.
And in this case, Richard was taking imagery, pictures of the upper portion of the actual jail. And so I did not want to interfere with him. So I kind of went off, did my business, and then came back around to go back upstairs because I was picking up a couple of pieces of equipment that we had put out. Meanwhile, I see what I believe is Richard. And again, remember, I'm thinking he's taking pictures. So I just acknowledged him, kind of did a nod towards him, and then pressed into the cells, which was really right next to where he was anyway, because I didn't want to interfere with what he was doing. And then I began to speak to his fellow investigator, a female that was with him. And instead of her replying to me, Richard replied to me. And he was in one of the cells. And I'm like, okay, what did I just nod to? I'm like, I just literally saw Richard outside the cells. How is he in the cells? Right. So for 5 minutes, we're going back and forth. No, you're messing with me. 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 And I'm like, okay, how did you get out to be standing out there? And there was no way for him to actually get out and be where he was,
right.
So I believe I saw something that was acting as a doppelganger. So they portrayed it a little bit spookier than obviously, if I see a fellow investigator, I'm not spooked by it because guess what? I think it's a fellow investigator, So I was, like I said, I was trying to not interfere with him taking pictures. So I was trying to be as non-intrusive as possible. In this case, seeing, something that was out of the ordinary. And, he recounted the tale for the TV show. And then they brought me on to kind of discuss the other piece of it and what I had encountered as part of it. And that was my first introduction to the paranormal within the TV aspect of things. And then,
interesting.
Yeah,
and people don't realize, there's so much that lands on the floor that doesn't get shown too, right? When they're editing.
They edit sometimes to, let's just say, aim a certain direction. Mm-hmm. And if it fits what they're doing, they'll roll it. If not, they might cut it. You're right. Editing is I personally believe that the McCormick Farm episode could have been edited differently. Maybe, even though I came in later, maybe you put me up front and then they do the other things after that.
Yeah.
Just kind of a sequence of events that would have shifted it a little bit differently. Right. But remember, everybody's limited by time, and editing and so forth takes a lot of time.
I had it was through community cable programming. So I had a television show with them, and I was so appreciative of my producer and how he edited. It was so true to fact. But I would do an hour and a half long session, and it would be whittled down to 12 minutes or a 2-hour event, and you're only seeing 17 minutes of it, right? You have to fit it in that time frame. So I think sometimes people neglect to remember that part of what we're seeing on TV has been filtered to some degree.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I was walking the location for 4.5 hours that night when I was exhausted after that, and the very last piece of it was when I went to the bunkhouse. I already had walked the fields and I walked different locations on the outside. I walked a lot of locations before I got to that point. And then at the bunkhouse, we did another couple hours because it was very, very active.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you don't see is I got scratched on the leg twice.
Oh, that's interesting.
The very first time I discounted it because I'm like, we'd been walking in the fields, I had very tall boots on, my military boots on, so it was a little above where my boots were. So, you know, I discounted it as, well, maybe it's something that I encountered when I was walking around. But it happened again in the exact same spot near that couch. So it was something that actually happened. And they never put that in because they would have had to kind of do some back explaining and a little more story to it.
Right. There's something I want to come back to, and Contessa is just asking another question. So Contessa, I do see your question, and I'm going to, it's going to fit in line with where I'm going to go. So please know that I saw that question and I haven't forgot you. I'm going to get to it. You had mentioned like purchasing all of that equipment, and I did the same thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to invest in all of this stuff. And now years later, I have, ones that I feel pulled to use more frequently, and the rest I use more for people to learn with, and they can use when I'm with them on an investigation, or if they come to the house and want to learn about it more than what I. So you started off spending that much money on equipment. What do you find yourself most drawn to using? Do you use it, or is there, what's the go-to?
I don't generally need it. If I'm doing it for somebody and I have to do some fact finding, I find a recorder is probably the best thing to do. A recorder, something audio driven, because visuals are very, very difficult, because people talk orbs. Orbs can be dust, moisture, they can be carpet fibers, they can be so many different factors. So, but I have seen orbs that were definite connection to spirit, so you can't have that as definitive something for somebody to kind of feel or see. You might be able to do the 3-picture thing where you constantly take 3 pictures, different
cameras too.
Yeah, but the thing is, like audio for me is one I would say is a go-to. I like something that's got several factors to it. So if I have a device that has EMF, temperature changes, and something else like a REM pod capability, I think that's kind of throws extra into it if I really want to. The other factor to me is, when I'm in a location and I'm looking at ceilings that are sitting at 12, 15 feet, I know from personal experience that some spirit actually can climb. Okay. So how do we capture that thing that's up there in the rafters creeping by us while we're focused on 3 or 4 foot off the ground?
Yeah.
So
I was in a location and this spirit kept slinking in from, it was an old farmhouse, in the window up and hanging along the ceiling. It just kept doing that same sort of, pictures didn't show nothing like that, but it definitely was coming in the window and sliding up right up to the top.
Yeah, we finally captured one in the basement of the Abbey. I wish I could show it to you, but it's literally the first one. You're like, not really anything there. You just see a little bit in the very beginning. Second one, it's a little more present, and then the third one. Second one, it's more present. Third one is completely in the hallway, across the hallway.
Wow.
And that's the one that kind of does the, the climbing and stuff. But it's a big mass. It's huge.
Wow. I think when I first started moving over into doing the investigations, I liked having that stuff because it felt like I was being validated, and when I sat with that, it was, I don't know if it was ego, it was confidence. Like, I'm just going to trust myself, and this is backing up what I'm receiving. And then got to that point where everybody else can use this. I'm just going to keep doing what I can do, and just use my gifts and not worry about having all of that other stuff. So recorder for sure. And it's always interesting, what we're picking up showing up on a recorder. That gets pretty exciting. But.
Yeah, it definitely, the disembodied voices, the EVPs, the disembodied voice is something that we audibly heard and recorded. The EVP is just something that was strictly off of the recording, but often those that are gifted can hear some of the things that other people would consider an EVP. So it's always interesting,
Contessa was asking, what other stones do you recommend? What do you think about black tourmaline for protection?
Black tourmaline is very, very powerful to kind of protect, but I also believe that you should use hematite in conjunction with it, because hematite deflects it. The black tourmaline absorbs the negative energy. So you have to kind of understand that anything that you're going to use for protection of that nature also has to be cleansed, because it is something that's going to take on the energy and protect you from something. So it could actually take on the energy of whatever it's protecting you against. So you have to routinely clear and cleanse anything that you're working with that's a crystal.
And do you have a preferred way of doing that?
Yeah, I use selenite. I put it out. I have that slab that I was gifted, and I put it out in the sunshine and put my crystals on it.
Yeah.
Other people use the moonlight. For me, I like the sunlight. It's a personal preference.
I think when it's easy, when it's simple and easy, people are more apt to create the routine around it. If you make it too complicated, people aren't going to do it.
Yeah, they forget. Life is busy.
Sometimes a little too busy. It's where the slowing down, right?
Yeah.
What was the transition like? I used to do hair for a living. It was what I used to do. It was mom did hair, and then it just kept coming up. It just messages were coming through. It just seemed to be in my space a little bit more. So I kind of put my foot down and went, okay, if this is the path that you're wanting me to take, then I'll follow through. I kind of need to see these things. If I can see these things before the end of the week, then I will jump in both feet and away we go. And I saw those things, and then I jumped in and did that. It was not necessarily super easy transition, but for you having a military background, was it a difficult transition?
Because when I came out, this is what I did. I said, God, take me where you need me.
Yes.
I'm very blessed in the fact that I had saved quite a bit of money from the military, and I bought my house for cash, and I have a lot of capability to help people where other people may not. So I said, God, take me where you want me to be. And I just trusted in it and just let it unfold. Each time I was on TV was not something I didn't seek it out.
No.
It came to me each time. And literally, I had a message from a friend that knows Katrina saying, hey, we need a psychic in Colorado. Would you be willing to do this? And I'm like, sure, I'll meet with the producer. Met with the producer. He was really super kind. I'm still friends with him. He's really nice. And it just happened.
Sometimes it's not a fit.
If you try to push it, then that's more than likely where you're going to run into something like that.
Yeah.
Just go with the flow and allow it to flow in.
Did everyone adjust with you though? But I guess if your parents and you were raised this way, then within your own family unit, trusting and flowing with it would have been a normal within your house. Like for some,
not necessarily, but it was also a transition for me because I was transitioning out of a marriage. So it gave me the freedom to, I had no judgment from anybody that was close to me like that. My sisters knew I had some post-traumatic stress disorder from Afghanistan and the events that happened. So they were trying to support me in a way to go, okay, we're going to try to see if whatever this is, we can help you with, so it was a transition of $15,000 worth of equipment to validate that everything that's coming through is valid. And this journey has been incredible. Every single day, I'm so grateful for anything and everybody that comes to see me. Like it's a blessing that somebody trusts in me to come to me.
And it's the being of service. I can't even stress that enough. The being of service, the more that we are helping other people, and people don't necessarily understand what their own personal gifts are. Their gifts could be just that they're the person that smiles and holds the door open for people every time, like at their work or whatever. Everybody's got a gift somehow that can be shared with other people around them. Yeah,
like I said, some people have the natural ability to play the piano. Some have the natural ability to sing. These are all different ways to impact the greater good, the people that are impacted by what they do. We just do it on a smaller scale a lot of times. We do it one person at a time. And it easily could be from that smile. It could be from any of those.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing either way you look at it. And like I said, that's why I literally said, I have the capability to utilize this. I initially thought, well, I was going to go towards, just being on a team only, and everybody has their own belief systems and everybody has their own. So a lot of times teams break apart because everybody has different views on evidence being presented to somebody. And I led the team, and they didn't necessarily want to focus on gifts at all. And yet I had 4 members of the team that were very gifted. And I'm like, well, I think you should go do what you need to do, because remember, that's not going with the flow. Going with the flow is doing what you need to do to focus on what you feel is right. That's why, I started actually eventually doing it on my own, like.
Me too. Do you find too, like, people will say, or I've had it happen with locations where they go, it's super active between this hour and this hour. I have found those of us whose light really shines quite bright when you step into that space, that it starts gearing up right away. It doesn't necessarily wait for like that hour to this hour. Like it's.
Well, you got to remember, if you're interacting with something that's residual, then that might be the case. Something that's just the recording of something that happened a long time ago, then that's potential. But at the same time, for some reason, those 3 encounters that I had back to back to back before I went to McCormick Farm was at a particular time. But I didn't find that correlation when I went to the farm. It happened the second I got on the farm.
Yeah. And I find
he literally ran at me energetically. He kept running at me, like, and kind of laughing. It's like, wow. And he did it to Jack at least 6-7 times. You don't see that, but he kept messing with Jack. He kept running at him and kind of trying to scare him.
Right. Well, he portrays to be a little bit more fearful in segments, whether he is or isn't. It's kind of the vibe that you get when you're watching portals.
Oh, no. What I'm trying to say is the spirit was messing with him.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, but I think that Jack has that a little more fearful than anybody else. Like, with
for Katrina. Katrina or I in that particular episode, yes, he was out of the 3 of us. Yeah. He's more fearful because he didn't quite.
But I find like those spirits know too, if they've been waiting for somebody to be able to pay attention to them, and somebody is, and it's almost like a relief for them or a game, depending on what their agenda is as spirit.
Remember, Jack is actually a really super dude. He is so nice.
I'm not saying he's. I agree. I am not saying it's a bad vibe. I just said I feel like he had a little bit more fear in.
There's just a little more trepidation with where he operates from, because they put him in some creepy dark spots,
Oh yeah, the
They had
psychomantium.
him, they had him trying to, they had him trying to basically sleep where I got scratched twice. Like that's not healthy.
But again, it's what they want to portray as far as a segment too, right? As far
Yeah,
as
everything's edited.
edited. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. But I find spirits will show up during the day too. You don't
So,
always have to wait to the middle of the night.
so we've got a focus of like 20 minutes. Is there something else you wanted to kind of
Sure.
look
Let's
at?
see if anybody's got questions. See if I missed any questions from prior. Do you have anything coming up that you'd like to share? Events or classes where you're going to be?
For me, my friend that ran the Abbey forever is traveling the country, and I'll be honest, I want to catch up with him. Don't get me wrong. I want to kind of jump on the Paracon, you said Lake Superior and the St. Thomas Church. I believe in the connection of churches and how wonderful it is. They're
It's
very.
a beautiful space to work out of. I love it.
I bet. Because like I said, I worked out of the Holy Cross Abbey forever. That's upwards of more than 80,000 square foot, and just
Wow.
such a fabulous location with so many abbots and priests and different spirits that are watching over the place. It's just beautiful.
Lake Superior, like Thunder Bay, you would probably enjoy too. Thunder Bay is on top of like amethyst. It's just amethyst. They mine amethyst there. Amethyst is everywhere. It is, it's like the very top of Lake Superior.
Yeah.
And just the power of Lake Superior. Lots of weird things paranormally happen up that way. So my friend is just asking, so Tansy's asking, is there a way to stay open but also protected so you can tap into just the friendly spirits? Do you believe
We're discernment tools. So I don't know if you can necessarily just do the friendly spirits, but you got to kind of, if you're going to tune into what's there, you're going to have to kind of tune into what's there. And because remember, it's not necessarily that it's a negative spirit, but it just might have been a little bit lower vibrating, and it's still continually like, well, you could be unhappy that we even disturbed it, and it's not in a good vibration or not in a good mood.
Yeah. And I find like when I'm doing individual sessions, sometimes people get a little surprised because I'll say some of the favorite or ones that I really like connecting with are those people that may have had addiction issues or did harmful, hurtful things here, because there's such a power in the healing that they've done in reflection, atonement, amends, the things that they've done on the other side, and why they're wanting to come through with forgiveness and trying to create a change within those that family structure with healing, right? So they may feel uncomfortable at the beginning, but it's just so that we recognize maybe the journey that they had, an evidential piece, right? And then they come in with
exactly. They're going to let you feel that and identify it, because that's what they were at the time, but they are no longer at that vibration.
Exactly.
And they're no longer the folks that have crossed or moved on, that you're connecting with. They're no longer in that, but they will allow you to feel it, so you can kind of explain that to whoever you're working with. Sorry,
That's powerful.
I was smelling something at the same time, so I was like, okay, I have to go. Okay, discernment.
Yeah, the smell part, I don't necessarily. It's not my favorite one. Smell's not my favorite. It's not my favorite Claire.
Sometimes taste is very difficult for me, but I taste blood and I taste different things.
Yeah, it's almost tinny, like metallic.
It's a metallic, yeah. I get it with the chemotherapy, and I also get it with anybody that got into some sort of accident.
Yeah, I I don't know. Maybe it's bold. I'm like, that's not working for me. I need you to give it to me a different way. Like, that's not working. I'm not liking it. You need to please give it to me in another way.
Well, no, I just am grateful. I let them do that. I smell the tobacco, the cherry tobacco. I smell
that's
all
my
sorts of things. Also helps me to discern if something's not so positive, because the sulfur comes in, or the dust is something that's a little more ancient or antiquated,
I think it's the cigarettes, like cigarettes in particular. So, and they've adjusted, because it used to be so strong it would make me gag, but now when it shifted, it's almost like my nose. So people that have watched me work consistently, as soon as I start doing this, then they know that I've got a smoker with me immediately, because it just shifted in a way that works best for me to be able to do the job.
I generally smell directly either a regular tobacco or cherry tobacco or whatever avenue it is. They bring it in with the actual smell.
Yeah, they do. It's amazing. I'm just sorry. I'll share this really quickly, and then we can start to close up. Tansy's just sharing that makes sense. Got to put my big girl pants on. Yes, you do.
Well,
like, you're in good company. You've got lots of people supporting you, which is helpful, right? It helps you feel safe.
You have the community that like when you're encountering things, don't be fearful of the dark things, but at the same don't exactly acknowledge it if you don't feel like it's something that you should be acknowledging. You can discern and understand there's something potentially around you that's not entirely positive, but that does not mean you have to engage with this. Don't engage with something that is either feels wrong or feels off. Every time I've encountered something extremely dark, there's generally something younger with it. It's either a female or a child that's usually working hand in hand with whatever's dark. It's this weird lure where they get you comfortable, they get you kind of going, okay, and then you get something that's not necessarily positive, and you're like, okay, you just kind of try to get closer to me. That's not necessarily healthy, so you got to understand the situation, and without using your gifts and open yourself up to both the negative and positive, then how are you going to continually grow this? So it's not about putting your big boy, big girl pants on. It's about just trusting in yourself once you're going through it.
Exactly. And I just always come back to you standing in the light. Like,
yeah, definitely.
So this is my friend, The Wiz.
That's so
Washington. He's just sharing. I would smell baby powder when my son would visit me.
Unfortunately, my dad passed last October, and when he visits, I generally smell him with chapstick smell, the original chapstick. Yeah. So my sisters explained to me that, because I did a lot of the tools and things when we went through his house to kind of get rid of stuff. I worked outside and they worked through the house, and they explained to me that he had chapstick everywhere in the house. So it's one of those things where I'm tuning into the chapstick when my dad shows up. And so we all get different things, different smells, different signs.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. Thank you for sharing your time and energy with all of us here today, and everything that you do to help support everyone. Where can people best find you if they wanted to connect with you?
Generally, just hit my Facebook page. I'm really kind. I'm super kind. Just hit me up on Shaun Michael Crusha on my page. I'm almost at the 5,000 friends, but just hit me up, and then I'm pretty kind. Yes, I don't do this for the money. I do this to help people. So the real key is just to kind of open yourself up if you got a question, and as long as it's not something that's like you want me to dive into my work where I'm taking an hour or 2 hours, then I do expect compensation for something like that. But for the most part, if you just got a quick question or you want to practice that cool exercise that I explained, I can explain it to you.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm all about that.
Thank you so very much. So if you guys want to hang out with the UPRN network, Jeffrey Pritchett is up next with the Church of Mavis, and next week on Spirit Switchboard, I have Dr. Scott Gurin, who just wrote a book about connecting with and understanding your angels, and he will be on next week talking about connecting with your angels. So thank you so much to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for being part of the chat. You guys make the show what it is, and I'm always grateful and very humbled that you guys support in the way that you do. Thank you so much, and you guys have a good week, and we'll see you here again next week. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.